People like me are facing violence, assaults. The left. Yes, the campus Antifa. I've been stormed out of restaurants. I've been assaulted publicly, multiple death threats.
Black people are only 13% of the population, yet they commit 55% of the murders. Why?
On September 10th, 2025, absolute chaos erupted at Utah Valley State University. Charlie Kirk was in the middle of his so-called American comeback tour, delivering a fiery speech under a tent when terror suddenly tore through the crowd. Without warning, gunshots echoed from a distance. Investigators now believe the shots came from a building nearly 200 yards away. Kirk was struck by a sniper's bullet, rushed into emergency care, but didn't survive. Police initially thought they had their suspect, but the shooter slipped away and remains on the run, leaving the conservative right reeling in disbelief. Almost instantly, tributes flooded social media across the country, even from President Donald Trump himself. The White House account on X confirmed that all American flags would fly at half-mast until Sunday evening at 6 p.m. Trump's message was blunt and bold, honoring Charlie Kirk as a truly great American patriot. That single statement set digital platforms ablaze, sparking heated debates and non-stop speculation. For many, Kirk wasn't just another political commentator. He was a relentless force of organization, a figure who shaped and polarized the conservative youth movement. Back in 2012, at only 18 years old, Kirk launched Turning Point USA, blazing across the country to rally young conservatives and push his vision nationwide. He wasn't just making noise on stage, he was building an empire. His reach went far beyond physical rallies, with numbers online that stunned even his critics. On TikTok alone, Kirk racked up nearly 7 million followers, giving him one of the loudest megaphones on the internet to drive his message. But the second news of his death dropped, so did a wave of criticism, and it hit hard. The backlash came especially fierce from the black community, where people resurfaced his past comments and called out years of inflammatory rhetoric. Kirk had long zeroed in on gun violence in black America and crime statistics, which turned him into one of the most divisive figures on the political stage. His remarks during the high-profile D. Carlo Brown case were a turning point.
People are only 13% of the population, yet they commit 55% of the murders. Why?
Because black people tend to be in lower economic statuses.
So you think that poverty equals crime?
It's highly correlated. A lot of
this
studies
is where
on
we
that.
disagree. What an insult to the working poor of
So
this
why
country.
do you think black people commit more
Well,
crime,
first of
Charlie
all,
Kirk?
what percentage of blacks have a father around when they're raised?
I'm not sure.
25%. 75% of black youth are raised without a father in the home. 75%. It is the most predictable way to end up in prison, end up as a murderer or a criminal.
And why
It's
do
not a
you think that's
racism
a problem?
It's not a white supremacy problem. It's a fact that black fathers impregnate women and they don't stay around with the women
And
that
why?
they have impregnated.
That tragic case involved a young Ukrainian woman who lost her life in North Carolina, and Kirk's commentary reignited outrage online. Kirk poured gasoline on the fire with one particular post. In it, he claimed flat out that Will Kane is 100% white, a statement that instantly sparked a storm of reactions. Screenshots circulated, critics clapped back, and hashtags lit up timelines with non-stop discourse. For supporters, he was just telling it like it is. For opponents, it was proof of his bias and dog whistle politics. Even in death, Charlie Kirk's words continue to polarize, proving that his legacy will remain a flash poem for years to come. For years, the media has pushed a narrative that America is this relentlessly racist.
It's Juneteenth. Exactly what's going on here. Well, very few people are willing to actually call this out. From the first time that this was floated as a federal holiday, I am thankful and proud to say on this program we oppose it. This is not about out of many one. No, it's about a certain skin color now gets their own summertime celebration. The exact same thing that happens before NFL games where they play the black national anthem. This recognition of this as a quote-unquote federal holiday comes right out of the 1619 Project. Look who's most excited that this is a federal holiday. And they're not talking about this as a massive celebration. Oh wow, look how far blacks have come. It has now become a racial complaining day. Now we have a full day to be able to smear and slander white America. This holiday is a wedge. holiday is a wedge used to push for countless destructive policies demanded by BLM. And remember what BLM stands for: burn, loot, and murder.
Nation where white-on-black attacks happen non-stop. But Kirk flipped that script with hard numbers, arguing that black-on-white attacks occur nearly 3 times more often, despite black Americans only making up about 13% of the population. His critics said he was cherry-picking data, but his supporters claimed he was simply exposing uncomfortable truths. Either way, that statement still stays outrage in endless debates to this very day. And here's where things got even messier. Charlie Kirk didn't just fire shots at the political left. He also sparked controversy when it came to cultural flashpoints like black holidays. After hammering crime in the black community, he then pivoted and openly dismissed Juneteenth, a holiday that literally commemorates the end of slavery in America. That move hit like a grenade, igniting furious backlash and dragging him into yet another firestorm of criticism. Here's the thing with a lot of white conservatives. They'll throw out lines like, "What do black people have to lose?" just like Trump once did, but then turn around and undercut themselves by mocking something tied directly to slavery. So when Kirk brushed off Juneteenth, it didn't just come across as tone-deaf, it looked flat-out hypocritical. To many, it felt like he was mocking a holiday meant to honor the ancestors of enslaved people, and that rubbed an entire community the wrong way. And let's be real, while Kirk did keep connections with a few black conservatives, those relationships always seemed one-sided. From the outside, it looked like you had to follow his script word for word if you wanted a seat at his table. Every black conservative seen standing next to him repeated the same talking points he did, almost like they were reading from a manual. After all, he co-founded Turning Point USA, and the black voices inside that circle had little choice but to echo his ideology if they wanted to stay close. That's a dynamic critics say revealed his true mindset. Because if someone made these kinds of dismissive comments about any other group, people would immediately call it insensitive. But Kirk said it about the black community, and that's exactly why the outrage hit harder than ever. If he really felt that way about Juneteenth, critics argue he should have just kept it to himself. Talking violent crime stats was one thing. Some claim the numbers backed him up. But once he crossed into erasing cultural history, that shifted the whole conversation into pure disrespect. That was the line, and Kirk walked right over it. At that point, it's
Word empathy. Actually, I think empathy is a made-up New Age term that does a lot of damage, but
I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year.
stopped looking like commentary and started looking like targeting. Of course, Kirk knew his audience well, and critics insist he was pandering to his base every single time. But when black communities hear a white conservative trash Juneteenth, the reaction is always the same. Why is he saying this? He doesn't even understand the history. That disconnect is exactly why his words landed as offensive instead of insightful. And this opens up another controversial chapter of his legacy. Because beyond cultural debates, Kirk pushed just as hard on guns, and his stance there was just as explosive. He once made it clear he didn't care about empathy at all. In his own words, violent deaths in America were worth the price if it meant protecting gun rights. That was Charlie Kirk, unapologetic, unfiltered, and willing to stow outrage no matter how far it went. That was Charlie Kirk's stance, cold, blunt, and unapologetic. So the backlash now feels almost inevitable. People are asking why anyone should suddenly pull out empathy for him when he spent years refusing to show it to others lost to gun violence. One critic nailed it. I'm not here to mock his death. But let's be real, this is the same guy who would have brushed it off if it was someone else. To Kirk, violent deaths weren't tragedies. They were just the cost of doing business. And that's the brutal irony critics are highlighting. Kirk was only 31, married, with a young family. Losing a life that early is tragic, no question. Nobody deserves to be gunned down over their beliefs, no matter how extreme. That's dangerous, disgusting, and a reality nobody should normalize. But the world is ugly. People will kill you for what you stand for, and Kirk became living proof of that. The twist? When you've spent years denying empathy to others, don't expect the same communities you dismiss to turn around and give it back. Hypocrisy doesn't slide anymore. This generation doesn't sugarcoat. They call it out loud, direct and raw, even in death. Especially with younger audiences, respect for the dead isn't automatic anymore. Just look at rap culture today. Diss tracks and mocking enemies after death are normalized now, something you never saw back in the 80s or 90s. Back then, if a rival gang took someone out, that was it. Nobody dropped a whole track celebrating it. But times changed. So when Kirk died, people weren't focused on his wife, his kids, or the fact that he was only 31 and maybe still had time to grow. The reaction was cold. You didn't care about us, so why should we care about you? And that's where things got explosive. Racial tensions were already sky-high, with flashpoints like the D. Carlo Brown case fueling debates. Now critics are flipping Kirk's own narrative back on him. They're asking the hard question, who really kills presidents? Who actually tries to assassinate political figures? It's not black folks. And what happened in Utah? Many are saying the same thing. It sure wasn't brothers pulling the trigger that day. For all Kirk's talk about black crime, nobody from the community ever tried to shoot him over his words. Think about it. Every day, white commentators spew insults about black people online. Folks might roast them, drag them, even threaten a fight, but nobody black is out here stalking them with sniper rifles. Take figures like Fresh and Fitzmyron. People clown him endlessly. People threaten him. But nobody black has tried to assassinate him. That's the difference when it comes to escalation. History proves it. The ones pulling triggers on political figures usually aren't black. It's white Americans deciding another white voice has to go. That's what makes Kirk's death even more twisted. Because while he was preaching nonstop about how violent black America was, the truth staring back is that the shooter who killed him was almost certainly white. And if we're brutally honest about violence worldwide, it's impossible to ignore centuries of wars, invasions, and oppression carried out by white powers. So when conservatives act shock about violence and try to pin it all on the black community, critics fire back with a hard truth. Who do you think we learned it from? From broken systems to broken language, everything in America traces back to lessons forced down by those in power. And yes, some of those bad habits stuck. But here's the hypocrisy. Now suddenly, white conservatives act tired of us, like they can't believe what we've become. Reality check. You're just looking at your own reflection. The same violence you engineered is now eating away inside your own ranks, and that's the truth nobody wants to face. Yes, black America has violence issues. Nobody's denying that. But here's the crucial difference. It's not black folks assassinating conservative leaders or storming to take out presidents. That's not our lane. The accountability should be directed where it belongs. Because if we're honest, the biggest threat to white America has always been white America. Whether conservative or liberal, it's been white-on-white conflict ripping the country apart since the beginning. Meanwhile, black America gets reduced to a soundbite, stripped of power, and painted as a threat we've never truly been. And deep down, everyone knows the truth. The real danger never came from us. It's been inside your own ranks all along. The reality is this. The real power in America doesn't sit on the streets. It's held by the corporations, the media empires, and the political machines pulling strings behind the curtain. And whether people like it or not, a lot of that control sits with the left. Those are the ones who can actually make moves big enough to shift outcomes. But instead of calling them out, too many stay silent out of fear. And when accountability gets dodged, the blame always gets dumped back on black communities that don't even have that kind of reach. For years, Charlie Kirk hammered away at what he called black dysfunction. But let's make one thing crystal clear. Black America had nothing to do with his death. What happened to him was tragic, but his downfall didn't come from us. The real battle has always been within his own camp, his own system, his own side. For decades, this country has already stripped black America of its power, boxed us in, and turned us into a political prop. That was a strategy from the start, and it worked. Now, America is facing bigger crises, problems that have nothing to do with us, yet somehow we still get framed as a punching bag. That cycle is breaking, because this time, the finger-pointing doesn't land on us, and the truth can't be buried under spin. What happened in Utah wasn't born in the black community. It came from deep fractures inside the very system Kirk was a part of. And no matter how the media tries to bend the story, people are waking up to that fact. So what do you think? Drop your thoughts down below and let me know how you see it. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to DripZ, and share this video so more people can join the conversation. The debate is only getting started, and your voice matters.